There are a lot of conflicts going on all over the world right now, and they play a big part in making the world unstable. It's not safe to live in these countries because of political instability, homicide rates in general, military and terrorist activities, natural disasters, and more. These are the top 10 most dangerous countries in the world. Number 10. Russia. Number 10 on the list is Russia, which is the largest country in the world with more than 146.2 million people. People in Russia who are between the ages of 18 and 27 have to serve 1 year in the military. They have the second most powerful military in the world and spend an estimated $61.7 billion on the military each year. Russia has had a lot of civil unrest in the past, and there has been a lot of trouble with Ukraine. Between Ukraine and Russia, at least 10,300 people have died, and an estimated 24,000 people have been hurt. There is a lot of tension in Russia's relationship with the U.S. and Europe because of this conflict. It could get worse if Russia expands its presence in Ukraine or NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries. Despite its military prowess, Russia still has a lot of terrorism in some places, like Chechnya, Dagestan, and Ingushetia. The North Caucasus also has a risk of political kidnapping and foreigners getting hurt. Number 9. Central African Republic. A landlocked country with 4.6 million people called the Central African Republic is in the middle of Africa. It's the 9th most dangerous country. It has been in a civil war for the better part of 9 years. There have been fights between the government, Salika factions, and anti-Balaka militias, as well as even more splits in the ex-Salika factions, FPRC and UPC. After the coup that took the first democratically elected government out of office in 2004, Bush went to war. The civil war has seen both the government and the rebels recruit more than 21,000 child soldiers, as well as more than 2,200 children who were sexually abused. Peace agreements between the government and the different armed groups have made little to no progress in resolving the conflict, and the groups have even gotten more violent in order to fight peace agreements from the UN and other outside groups. The Central African Republic is one of the poorest countries in the world, even though it has a lot of mineral resources. It has the second worst level of human development and is the worst place to be a young person. Number 8. Libya. 6.9 million people live in Libya, the 4th largest country in Africa. It's in North Africa, and most of the country is made up of sand in the Sahara Desert. Libya as a whole hasn't been able to get over its first armed fight in 2011. The Western military helped the rebels overthrow the then leader of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi. This caused a power vacuum and instability because there is no established authority in charge. Since then, there has been a lot of different political and military groups in and around the capital, Tripoli, as well as in other parts of the country. The United Nations tried to help and even set up a government, but rebels took over the eastern part of the country and didn't like it. Some of the rebel groups get money and support from other countries that want to get their hands on the country's oil. Number 7. Democratic Republic of Congo. This country has about 105 million people and is the second largest country in sub-Saharan Africa and the third largest country in all of Africa. It is the 7th most dangerous country in the world to live in, though. A long-running military conflict has been going on since 2005. This has caused one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Violence, hunger, and a total lack of attention has led to one of the most underreported human displacement crises in history. At least 6,000 people leave their homes every day because of the rise in violence in the eastern part of the country. Having millions of people fleeing their homes and the Ebola pandemic reaping havoc on the country makes things even worse. The scale and number of conflicts in the country are also on the rise. Number 6. Somalia. It's in the Horn of Africa, and it's thought to have a population of about 15 million people. The Siad Barre started a resistance against a military junta dictatorship in 1977. When the military government was overthrown in 1991, a lot of armed factions started to emerge, and because there is no established authority, there was a tussle for leadership that led to a short-term collapse of customary law in the early 90s. As of today, there are an estimated 2.6 million people who have been forced to flee their homes because of the civil war. There is no hope that the war will end because different communities keep making or joining militia groups as a way to defend and protect themselves, leaving Somalia at number 6 on the list of the most dangerous countries. Number 5. Iraq. 5 out of the top 5 are Asian countries with mostly Muslim people. Iraq is in the top 5 because it was in war for almost 8 years from 2003 to 2011, then had another civil war from 2014 to 2017 and hasn't fully recovered from the effects of war. It has a population of about 40 million people. The country is still at risk from terrorism, with bomb attacks happening all the time. Militias from both sides of the government fight in and around the capital city of Baghdad all the time. Number 4. South Sudan. It is landlocked and has an estimated population of about 11.06 million people. In 2011, the country broke away from Sudan. Since then, there's been a lot of ethnic violence and civil war, which has led to a lot of abuse of human rights and a lot of ethnic massacres. More than half of the people of South Sudan have been forced out of their homes. As a result, even though there was an end to the civil war and a peace agreement, there are still armed conflicts all over the country. The rate of violence now is even higher than it was during the civil wars. As a result, the country is now number 4 on the list of the top 10 most dangerous countries in the world. Number 3. Syria. There are an estimated 17 million people in Syria, but there are also 6.2 million people who have been forced to flee their home country and another 5.6 million people who have been forced to flee their home country as refugees. When it comes to the World Peace Index, Syria is at the bottom. This is in no small part because of the civil war that has been going on in the country for more than 10 years now. In 2011, there were protests against the president, Bashar al-Assad. Since then, the protests have grown into a full-blown civil war that has killed hundreds of thousands of people, destroyed cities, and violated human rights. The fact that there are hundreds of rebel groups in the civil war might mean that the end of the Syrian civil war isn't coming anytime soon. Also, foreign powers who take sides and send money and arms to different factions and groups are to blame for the war. Number 2. Yemen. Second, Yemen is a country on the west coast of Asia that has an estimated population of 30 million people. Yemen is number 2 on the list of the most dangerous countries because it has been in a political crisis for more than 10 years. The protest started out as a way to fight poverty and bad government. Once the old president stepped down and gave power to the new government, there has been a full-scale civil war in the country that forced the new president to flee. Since then, other Arab countries have helped with airstrikes to help defeat rebel groups and bring back the embattled government of the ousted regime. Since the start of the war, 20 million people in Yemen have had to get help from humanitarian organizations to live. Number 1. Afghanistan. The number 1 most dangerous country in the world, Afghanistan, has seen a huge rise in military attacks on civilians by the Taliban, who have taken province after province and even forced the United States to leave the country. After the president was forced to flee the country, the rebel group took over the country. They have attacked the provinces over and over again, with many suicide attacks on cities and record-breaking numbers of deaths every year. This makes them rank the list of the top 10 most dangerous countries in the world. Conclusion. It always led to war and conflict when people are divided and don't get along. The main effect has always been to put people at risk and lose their homes. This is one thing every country on this list has in common. They are all at war, leaving the lives of its citizens extremely endangered, and every citizen of these countries has in one way or the other been adversely affected by the wars, and the countries themselves have suffered nothing but stagnation or even retardation.